Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have got a big show for you this week. We're very excited to have you with us for this episode. This week, we're going to be covering Andy's big speech, the state of our Commonwealth, according to Governor Beshear. We're going to have a big contribution to the GOP's building fund and the irony involved there. And we're going to cover the fact that all of the constitutional races, the filing is finished. We now know what the ticket is going to look like. Assuming everyone kind of continues with their intention of running for these offices, which also has an influence on a special election as well. And then we've got a fantastic interview. Well, I don't know if it's fantastic. I haven't done the interview yet. You can be the judge whether it's. I think it's going to be fantastic. Really excited to be joined by Representative Cherlynn Stevenson, who is newly elected to the House the Democratic House Caucus. She's the chair of the House Caucus in Frankfurt. She's also my representative, so always a pleasure to chat with her. And then we're gonna, as always, wrap up with a really important call to action. So that's the show. I'm gonna try to get it to you in an hour or less. We shall see. I always try to do that because we're respectful of your time. We know you're busy folks. We know you've got a lot on your plate, and we're excited about the fact you're choosing to spend a bit of time with us today. All right. So before we get into that, though, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? I know that you are because you're here, and that shows an interest in Kentucky politics. And if you're interested in our perspective on Kentucky politics, you're probably like us, a little bit disgruntled about how things are happening right now in Frankfurt. So we need to work together to make things a bit better, make Kentucky purple. Why purple? Because we are bright red right now, folks, and we are the kernels of truth, and we are not going to lie to you. So we are a red state. We are going to need some work to get to blue, and so purple is in between. Let's get there first. Let's make it bite-sized. Things we can get done. Let's move forward. So if you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, please join Progress Kentucky. Support our campaign to turn our Commonwealth purple. Make a donation at our secure Act Blue website. Spread the word that we're tired of the GOP ignoring the needs of regular folk in Kentucky, and that we think our Commonwealth is worth fighting for. So now, very exciting time to check in with our co-host. And when we do this, we'd like to remind folks we're not some talking head show, some media show on the interweb, because if we were, we would probably feel pressured to be better at this work than we are. We are a digital demonstration for a more compassionate Commonwealth. So we got to have a sign. You got to have a protest sign. What does your protest sign say today? So I'm Aaron. I am coming to you from Childsburg, a Ball Homes cookie cutter community in the Lexington suburbs. And my protest sign says today, 15th time's the charm. Congratulations, Kevin. So not really a protest, just a point I'd like to make. All right, now let's check in. Oh, and you there on the interwebs, you should go ahead and add your sign. If you got a protest sign or some slogan you'd like to share with the world, feel free to do that, and we can put it on the sign. I'll put it on our screen rather. So let's check in. Lovely, fantastic co-host. Glad to have him back after jet setting, trips around the globe, or the country at least. Willie Carver. Willie, are you there?
I am here. And I think 15th times the charm is quite the protest. Because boy, that got really painful.
So bad.
So I'm all in for it. Willie Carver, as of 11 days ago, no longer the reigning Kentucky Teacher of the Year, but check out Mandy Perez, the 2023 Kentucky Teacher of the Year, because she is awesome. I am coming to you from Mount Sterling, Kentucky, in a very red county, Montgomery County. And my protest sign says, Kentucky's future is queer. I just spent this semester working again with high school students, and I just keep realizing how much more aware of sort of the oppression that's happening, how much more aware of what the future is going to be like these guys are. And it's super exciting. I just worked with Greta, last name's not coming to me, who works at Shutterstock, and we talked about creating new rural images of queerness. And she worked with some students from Kentucky to sort of get that idea out so that the internet is also thinking about queerness in terms of rurality. So I'm stoked for the future. I think we're going to see that purple faster than we might otherwise have thought.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do feel like, the children are the future, right? So hopefully, and it's not really fair to again and again turn to the youth to help save us. Like, we've made this mess. We should help fix it. But for sure, I think in things like, kind of, I've got a high school age daughter, and I think she's definitely like way more aware than I certainly was at her age. So it gives me, I'm with you, Willie. It gives me some hope for sure.
I have a clear memory of sitting in Miss Boland's high school U.S. history class, and she explained to us the difference between Republicans and Democrats, and we were all sort of like barely there. High school sophomores know the difference between Democrats and Republicans. I can't imagine any of them not knowing.
Yeah. Right. I think it is definitely, one sign of, unfortunately, our kind of greater partisanship. Like it's so doctrinaire for people that they know and that they are adamant about what side they're on, for a lot of people, not everybody. I think there's still a vast group in the middle that doesn't pay nearly as much attention to these things, which that also gives me hope. but yeah, that's a good point. So, hey, we have got some stories we want to cover. Let us roll right into news of the week. I will, say we got 3 stories we're going to do, and then we're going to get to our interview. There is an outside chance we might be joined by another host. So we shall see what happens. I just wanted to put it out there in case you're confused as a listener. What's this new voice that I haven't been introduced to? Or that just these things happen sometimes. It's not like we have an open door policy, but we do. We're welcoming of folks who might have other commitments they weren't aware of when they said they'd co-host. I'm not naming names. You'll figure it out when they show up. All right, let's go. News of the week. So the first story we wanted, if you remember last week, we actually did our show early and we did it short so we would get out of the governor's way so he could give his big speech, the State of the Commonwealth. Let's check in and see how he did. So I don't know if you watched some things that I caught from the show, important things that he said in the speech. He really advocated for teacher raises, asking for a 5% teacher raise. He was adamant about universal pre-K and the importance of that for our Commonwealth. Also mentioned medical marijuana, mentioned sports betting, kind of all wrapped up in our economic success, right? So he, had a couple shout outs there to some of the EV battery manufacturing folks. Of course, he likes to say that Kentucky is the EV battery manufacturing leader in the nation, which, I think for a minute we certainly we might be. We're close. There's a lot of battery plants coming in across the South and really across the Midwest and across the country. So I need to see the numbers, but there's definitely a heck of a lot of activity thanks to him and his team. Also, mentioning our kind of Kentucky tough resiliency in the face of the twin natural tragedies that he's been dealt with under his watch. He shouted out also our state park employees, first responders, folks who are donating land in Eastern Kentucky for a flood community rebuilding project. I believe it's called Olive Branch. And again, he spent a lot of time in the good economic news, which, why wouldn't he? The best 2-year period for economic development and job creation in the country, in the state's history, record high budget surpluses, longest period of lowest unemployment in the state history. He also touted the bipartisan efforts to invest in Kentucky's infrastructure. Of course, he was addressing the Commonwealth after just being in Covington with the president, with Mitch McConnell, and then Ohio's GOP Governor Mike DeWine and former GOP Senator Rob Portman. So that kind of, that bipartisan message, I think, is really important. The fact that the toll-free Brent Spence companion span announcement, I think that's going to be something that absolutely helps him in his efforts to gain Republican votes in November. But that's a story we'll touch on later. What else? In addition to the teacher raises, he asked for a raise for state employees. After the legislature promised to do so last year, he urged a 1.5% increase in state employee retiree pensions, which has been 10 years since they've had a cost of living adjustment or a COLA. We all know that inflation is real and it's affecting folks' bottom line. Of course, I'm sure our own state retiree, Doug Price, will have more to say there. But, with the GOP majority in the state House and in the state Senate, all those funding ideas might sound great, and they might be things that people really like the idea of, but they are going to meet with very stiff opposition in the General Assembly. I think more on that later. Our guests will have some ideas, certainly. But, my take on the speech was it was generally, we're doing great, but we could do more. That's what my ears picked out. If you'd like to read the speech or watch it, I think KET has it available, but we've got a link to the actual PDF of the speech if you want to read it. If you were watching on KET, you were treated to the instant responses from GOP's leader in the General Assembly, Stivers and Thayer. That whole crew kind of pushed back immediately, saying you couldn't do teacher raises piecemeal. Complained that Andy's basically cut them out of the processes and he doesn't work with the General Assembly and he keeps them in the dark. GOP leaders are also characterizing sports betting as like small dollars and who cares about it. They remain fairly ho-hum about medical marijuana, and they were generally dismissive of everything Andy wanted to do and blamed his administration for not getting things done. Did we mention it's an election year? I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. It was it was a good speech. It was compelling. He had a lot of good folks there to kind of shout out to, and painted a pretty positive vision of the Commonwealth and where it's gone since he took over, basically. Willie, did you watch? Do you have any thoughts about it?
Read a synopsis afterwards. My thoughts are, especially with, obviously, I'm going to go to the teacher raises first, but we wanted those. We begged for those for years and couldn't get them. And so the same General Assembly that absolutely refused to in any way make it happen now accuses him of not working with them when he tries to make it happen. I get really grossed out by politics for the sake of politics. And I think you hit on a really good point about how people like Andy Beshear and people like what he does. These are no nonsense bipartisan things, raising the cost of living, bringing businesses into Kentucky, making sure that teachers stay in the classroom by giving them enough money. And it's an interesting time when you have a party that's doing what is very unpopular and yet remaining in power.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the very recent history, we've gone from 44th in teacher pay to 42nd to 44th, right? So that's that's not the trajectory we need. As we are facing a teacher shortage, it is absolutely, it's critical that these guys get their act together and increase teacher pay. And that's, doesn't seem as likely as it should. We'll hear more again from our guest, I think, in a bit about that. But absolutely, politics for politics' sake, right? Like they don't, they're just going to pick fights and blame Andy for not doing things their way or not making them the co-chairs of everything. I don't know. It's a little disappointing. We will watch. We will see. But I thought it was a good speech. I thought people, he kept it relatively short. It wasn't a stem whiner that went nowhere. It was definitely, some good highlights to point to. And it, again, bipartisan messaging about how good it is when we work together and stand together. So I'm in.
I'm always in. I think it's no secret that I have a crush on Andy Beshear, but he's just a decent human being who is really good at what he does. And I am, if anyone can, if you go to the comments section of anything he's doing, there's one or two people sort of saying the same things over and over, but it's overwhelmingly positive. I don't think he has a lot of people who dislike him. Yeah. And that's my hope for a Purple Kentucky.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think
work of men like him,
really important that, kind of like competent, serious, compassionate folks, get up there and help chart our future. And I do think that he is, I think he's awfully good at his job. And there's a reason he's, often currently the most popular Democratic governor in the country in terms of polling, and, to be the most popular Democratic governor in the country in one of the least Democratic states, do the math. There are people there across the aisle who think he's great, think he's doing a good job. Some of those historic Democrats in Kentucky who, would not, ever say anything nice about Nancy Pelosi are willing to say nice things about Andy Beshear. So.
Yes.
All right. So should we move on to your story? One I think is kind of interesting. I'm excited to talk about.
Sure. If anything, it's just confusing. So Pfizer recently donated the first quarter of 2023 $1 million to the Republican Party of Kentucky's building fund. So what's amazing here is that this building itself is only worth $485,000. So we're talking about a donation that's worth more than twice the value of the building itself. This fund literally only raised $6,000 in the first quarter of 2022. I was able to raise $6,000 for LGBTQ kids in one quarter this year. So the fact that the entirety of the Republican Party's building fund only raised $6,000, I hope I get $1 million from Pfizer, is my thought. One thing that shocked me was I was thinking, how is this possible? Because aren't there lots of rules about how super PACs contribute, et cetera, et cetera? But there was a 2017 General Assembly bill that basically allows for unlimited amounts when we talk about buildings and associated expenses. So in this case, we have a building and an associated expense. Of course, that raises questions about whether or not that frees up other money. But Pfizer, makers of the vaccine for COVID-19, donated $1 million to the Republican Party of Kentucky. My thought is, who's giving to the Kentucky Republican Party next? The Human Rights Campaign, American Library Association, maybe RuPaul's Drag Race. It is completely and utterly baffling. But this headquarters is known as the Mitch McConnell Building. And Mitch McConnell has been outspoken about his support of vaccines. Which has even had him branded Rhino. And when you look at the numbers, 47% of Republicans said that they would not get this vaccine. 44% of Republicans, according to a YouGov poll, said that they believe Bill Gates is using a mass COVID-19 vaccination campaign to implant microchips in us. That's almost half the party, and yet they are giving this much money. So what I think about a lot is how this is really a testament to how democracy is working. Even Republicans can't make decisions for what the Republican Party is doing. Right? Republicans who are against the vaccine, Pfizer's going to buy the party, right? Or Kentuckians overwhelmingly not being in favor of new abortion rules, doesn't really matter. When you look at the revenue, Pfizer made $81 billion in 2021, and only a tiny fraction of that is a contract with the U.S. government. They made $1.5 million in their initial contract, and they're getting, $1.5 billion, which is a lot, but a drop in the bucket to that 81. $3.5 billion in their most recent contract. So if you break that down by person by state, it's about $4.50 a person in that initial $1.5 billion contract. So $4.50 each, 4.5 million Kentuckians, that's about $20 million. When you look at the cost for research and development, the cost for all these things, 1 million out of 20 million is still a lot of money to be given. I think this has a lot more to do with democracy than anything else. What does it mean when a corporation this large can make such a donation? That's kind of where I am with all of this, and that I'm confused.
I just love the irony there. And I really hope that, I know that we're probably not the best way to spread that message around Republican circles, but I feel like I really hope they all like clue in. The Liberty Wing sees what, what's going on there in Frankfurt and how much money Pfizer, Cavanna-matics, right? So how annoyed are those people? And let the interfighting begin, right? The 15 votes that Kevin McCarthy had to go through because that small yet mighty group of crazy people was making his life hard, right? They're not gonna be psyched about a Pfizer donation.
I think this is the doomsday device inside the Republican Party, right? That you've got all these libertarian small men, leave us alone talking points in a very big government party. And I think they've been able to successfully convince the average Republican that Democrats are somehow the ones taking all of this money from companies like Pfizer. And now they're doing it because they have to survive, because that's the political party that that's the government that we've created. And where is the place for the Marjorie Taylor Greens? where is the place for the 44% who believe that the vaccine has a microchip in it?
Yeah, I hope they maybe start their own party.
I would love
then
that.
The Democrats can cruise through with their strong 35% or whatever.
I will cater that party if they create that party. I will come play the music for them at the inaugural event.
Nate will DJ for them, I think. We can get those folks out on their own. Yeah, it's a weird unholy alliance, really. The kind of like pro-corporate mainstream Republicans and the Liberty Wing who, just think that corporate America is up to no good, because oftentimes they aren't. Like I don't dispute your skepticism. But yeah, I definitely think this is an interesting development. I hope everyone catches news of it. I hope that, Cooper Ryder makes it one of his campaign pledges to like get rid of that. But that's actually our next story. So let's move on. The next story that I am excited to bring to you is the fact that the ticket is set, right? The primary elections are set. The filing deadline has come and gone. May 18th. Mark it on your calendar. We're going to see some contests on the GOP side of the ballot, not so much on the Democratic side. So obviously the big story is all these GOP folks running for governor, but let's start at the down to the kind of more down ballot races. There's a lot of people I do not know who they are. Like, I'll be honest, there's some good reporting out there. I know that folks over at My Old Kentucky Podcast have done some deep dives on some of these folks. I think they're going to continue to do more. I'll make a pledge to all Progress Kentucky Kernels of Truth viewers. We're going to try to get every candidate on the Democratic side of the aisle to come and share their view with us, for sure. And we will see kind of who we line up. But the only contested race on the Democratic side of this is for Commissioner of Agriculture. Legitimately contested. So we got Sierra Enlow versus Michael Malone. And these are definitely people that I am not terribly familiar with. Sierra Enlow is of Hodgdonville, who is an economic development advisor, and Michael Malone, who's from Winchester. So that's what we've got there. We do have a fight on the Republican side as well for Commissioner of Ag. We've got, of course, Ryan Quarles has been there for quite a while. He's term limited and running for governor, but former State House Majority Floor Leader Jonathan Schell is running. He lost a Republican primary in 2018, so that's why he's no longer in the State House. And then Representative Richard Heath of Mayfield, who's been in the legislature since 2012. So that's who's going to be duking it out for the Commissioner of Agriculture. Then the auditor. This is actually where current State Treasurer Allison Ball, she is working to move to that seat because she's term limited at treasurer. And then Derek Petties of Lexington is challenging her in the primary. Don't know anything about him. On the Democratic side, Kim Reeder, who's of Frankfurt and is a tax attorney and a teacher, she is running unopposed, so she will be the Democratic nominee. And then on the, let's see, the state treasurer. This was another one where there's just a heck of a lot of competition and an interesting race, I think, on the Republican side of it. Andrew Cooperrider, who I mentioned before, he's the guy who owned the Lexington coffee shop, rose to prominence because he didn't want to, put COVID restrictions in place, didn't want to close down, didn't do it. He then became one of the advocates for impeaching the governor because of the fact that, they did stuff about COVID. He was a part of that, that Liberty wing for sure. And he lost a Republican state Senate primary last year. So he's, trying to get out there. He's got a bit of a name. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then OC or OJ Aleka, who is at Frankfurt. He's actually Allison Ball's staff. He works for her right now. And he apparently has something to do with Mitch McConnell. Maybe he worked at Mitch McConnell's office at some point. Formerly president of the Association of Independent Kentucky Colleges and Universities. Seems to be kind of the mainstream Republican pick. Also, but Mark Metcalf of Lancaster. He is the Girard County attorney. And I learned earlier he was the kind of independent investigator into Allison Grimes when there were ethical complaints against her. He was the guy who was appointed because Andy Bashir, said he was conflicted out. So that's there's 3 seemingly legitimate people running for, well, loosely, I don't know, legitimate campaigns maybe for state treasurer. And then Michael Bowman, who's the Democrat. So he's from Louisville. He's been active in party politics for, I think, a long time. And he ran in 2019 and lost to Ball. So he's running again. He's worked for the Bashir administration on education and workforce development issues. He's got banking experience. Seems like a legitimate, resume for this role. And we'll watch his campaign closely. Again, we'll try to get him on the show to share his view. And then kind of moving up the ballot, we have got the attorney general race. That's one where this is not, I think, going to be competitive on either side. Russell Coleman, who's the former U.S. attorney for the Western District of Kentucky, he is running, and he was general counsel to Senator Mitch McConnell. So pretty well anointed, I think, there. And then he's going to be facing off against friend of the show, State Representative Colonel Pam Stevenson, who is an attorney and, of course, a colonel in the Air Force, also a Baptist minister. And she's going to be running. So we've had her on. We'll have her on again for sure. And excited to see how that race plays out. And, of course, the big one is the governor's race, right? So that one's very I skipped Secretary of State. So Secretary of State is happening as well. That one, Adams has got Michael Adams is running against Stephen Knipper, former chief of staff for Lieutenant Governor Janine Hampton, and former state rep Alan Miracle. So that's, there'll be three Republicans running. There's only one Democrat running. That is former state rep Charles Buddy Wheatley, who's been on this show. He was, of course, redistricted kind of into a far more challenging race, and unfortunately did not win that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Adams is, the favorite running away in terms of the primary, but probably in the general too. He's gotten a lot of, I think he's gotten a lot of kudos from a lot of folks about how things have been run. The elections were run during kind of the COVID crisis and kind of what came after. He has marginally made our elections a little bit more kind of free and fair and accessible, but we had some of the worst elections in the country, so we didn't have to do much. And there's still a lot that should be done to make our elections just freer and fairer. But he's certainly he has certainly, I think, gotten some good attention for his work so far. But Buddy Wheatley has got, I think, some great experience and kind of public service for a very long time in a lot of different forums. So maybe have him back on the show as well to kind of hear his vision of that race. So yeah, and then of course the big one is the governor's race. So things didn't change there, although there was some last minute drama. Right, Matt Bevin, said he would be showing up at the rotunda that final day of filing. So he showed up. He gave a kind of an impromptu press conference, talked about some things that the state should be doing, and then just walked away. My favorite take on it was Nima Brewer said, man walks up, flaps gums, leaves. Didn't really, didn't say much. Very, very trolly, and kind of how he managed it. Like what a character. So sad he's not in the race. Actually, it would have been awesome to see him in the race, because having more fighting on the Republican side of the aisle can only help us. I don't know. So we'll probably do much more on the Republican race moving forward, but things didn't really change. So everyone we've discussed in the past, are folks who were there, and it'll be interesting to watch for sure. But not a ton of competitive races on the Democratic side. The one thing I will point out is that the state Senate said this is where they're going. That's the date they will have the special election for the 28th district. That was the one that, of course, we've talked about this a couple of times. Ralph Alvarado is, getting a cushy job in Tennessee and is leaving to be a quack for them. And is now, vacating his Senate seat, which of course he could have seen that coming because he definitely announced it like right after the election. Got to imagine there was a pretty intensive interview process, but didn't do anything to mention that to anyone. But yeah, so now I won't get a state senator for quite a while because, he's not going to be there. He's going to be in Tennessee, and they are not doing an early special election. They decided to hold it to, give them the most advantage. Like I just said, right, going to be a lot of competition on the Republican side of the aisle. Not a ton of Democratic, kind of engagement for that primary, I don't think. And so, it really doesn't play to Democrats' strengths for that Senate seat, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's a bummer. But then we mentioned this last week. I think the 19th Senate district, that's going to be done earlier so that district will actually get a senator. Morgan McGarvey, who of course was elected to Congress. So, all right, that's that. We're a little bit late, which I don't even know how we did that. But Willie, any thoughts you want to raise about those races before we get to our guest?
I don't think there's much thinking to be done about it. I'm just shocked at how quickly some of these Republicans who are firebrands turn into absolute recluses. So whether we're talking about Trump or Bevin, like I think when everything's made of just inflated hot air, it just sort of fizzles into a little peef really quickly.
Disappears very quickly. Yeah. So that guy. Whew. He just needs a hobby, I think. Like, really, he needs to find something to do with his time besides trolling us on the internet.
Maybe he can go help develop the new Pfizer ballroom at the Republican headquarters.
So yeah, that's the news of the week, folks. Filtered through our lenses. There's other news you could. Important news out there, but that's the news we decided we wanted to bring you. All right, so now really excited, very happy to bring our guest on. Representative Cherlynn Stevenson is a new member of the Kentucky Democratic House leadership. She's my representative, has represented the 88th district since 2018. Winning 3 competitive races for the Lexington Suburban District after her most recent victory by the remarkably close margin of 37 votes. She joined Representative Derek Graham as an elected leader of the House Democratic Caucus, along with new caucus whip Rachel Roberts from Campbell County's 67th District. Welcome, Representative Stevenson.
Thank you so much for having me. Hey, Aaron, it's great to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
And, always happy to hear what you have to say, but especially now that you're a leader, I think like you're always a leader. But like, so how was that like a remarkably hard fought election? Was it
Yes, yes. Obviously, my very first election, we won by 48 votes, and who thought it could really get closer than that? But, on election night, we came out with what we thought was a 35 vote margin. And after the recount, a couple more votes were found. So we are sitting at 37, and we'll take it. As most people here probably know, redistricting was not very kind to me. So we knew that we were probably going to have a super, super close election, and proved to be true. But we're still here. We're still fighting, and Kentucky's worth fighting for. And my team and I are just so pleased that we were able to pull it out.
Oh yeah, such a relief. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I went and knocked doors for you. So I'm going to take credit for it, because I'm pretty sure I definitely knocked on way more than 37 doors. So right. I'm just going to claim all the credit there.
Yeah.
That's the awesome thing about close elections, is everything mattered. Every single thing mattered. And you can't say that your vote doesn't count, because holy crap, 37 votes made the difference in that race.
30 votes. Yeah. And, we talked about all of the things that we did to reach out to voters and to talk to voters and to get our message to voters. And there's not one thing that we could not have done. There's not one door that could not have been knocked. There's not one mailer that couldn't have been mailed, one postcard, not $1 to be donated. Everything mattered in that race. And we're just so proud that we pulled it out, and that we're there to keep fighting for the Kentucky that we believe in and we want.
Yeah. Well, so then you had another election though. So you were elected, the caucus chair.
Yes.
Was that one hard fought, or was that a little easier?
No, it wasn't. Actually, the press release that went out, all three of us were elected by acclamation. So none of us had competition. Again, our caucus is only 20 people. But it was great. The three of us wanted to step up, and the fact that our caucus believes in us and puts faith in us to lead them forward and to try to grow our caucus and keep fighting for those things that we all believe in. It is a big honor, and I'm hopeful that I can live up to the challenge.
Yeah. So it did not take 15 ballots to select the leadership for the Democrats.
Shockingly, we did not have, no 15 ballots. It was pretty great.
No.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Or there had to be no deals made behind the scenes. There was no, no shucking and jiving, no wheeling and dealing. We just came together and looked at the best way for our caucus to move forward, and came together to say, this is it. This is what we want to do, and this is the foot that we're putting forward. So we're happy to do it, and we're ready to fight for the things that Kentucky needs. We're ready to fight for public education. We're ready to fight for medical marijuana. We're ready to stand up and say it's past time for sports betting. We're ready to once again fight for our public employees and the raises that they deserve and the COLAs that our retirees deserve. We're ready to talk about juvenile justice. We're ready to back the governor and the things that he's fighting for. And the three leaders were happy to file 6 bills, in conjunction with his office to say, these are the things that we believe matter to Kentuckians, and these are the things that we, as a General Assembly, should be focused on.
Yep, and I think so. Those 6 bills, you don't need to read them, but are there were those just the kind of issues you mentioned? So the teacher raises, yep.
For all of those issues that we mentioned, there's a separate medical marijuana bill. There is a separate sports betting bill. There's an education bill. There's one, for DJJ, juvenile justice. There's one for our public employees. So, folks are obviously welcome to go out and look at those, but the governor, it's really a lot of what the governor talked about in his State of the Commonwealth.
So that, right, you are a minority. You couldn't cut a lot of deals because you don't have a lot of power. Let's just be frank. And it's unfortunate. I don't want to be harsh, and it's unfortunate. And it's what I think that means is we need to make sure that everyone understands that the policies that are coming out of Frankfurt are
Right.
not the policies that Andy wants or that the Democrats are fighting for, right? It's what the Republicans want. So, like, looking at that, I've seen some language of Governor Beshear responding to the Republicans' priorities. Obviously they haven't said anything good about medical marijuana, really, although there's a state senator who actually filed a bill, right? A Republican state senator filed a bill. It's passed the House before. I haven't seen anyone say much good about sports betting. But then what about their number one priority, which is of course reducing the income tax rate, blowing an enormous hole in the state budget, right? Like $600,000 this year, 1.2 billion moving forward.
So dropping from 5 to 4, it's $1.2 billion. We are giving away $12 to everyone that we're going to take in by the new service taxes.
Yeah, so huge disparity, right? So they really couldn't jack up our they would have to do a lot to increase the amount we're paying in like sales tax or whatever to make up that difference, and they're of course not doing that, and nobody really wants them to do that. But seems like there's a huge giveaway to the rich, the 10%, right?
Yeah, it is. And interestingly enough, as you all mentioned before, former Governor Bevin came and did his wacky little press conference on Friday, and he made our point for us. If you watch that press conference, he congratulated Brandon Reed on passing that bill and said that he hoped that we would get our income tax down to zero. However, people needed to understand, and he challenged the media to help Kentuckians understand that if that happens, then that means that our sales tax has to go up. So we kind of thanked him for delivering part of our message and for verifying to the people of Kentucky that is what we were saying, that this is an unsustainable cut. It is a permanent tax cut based on temporary surpluses. And when those surpluses are gone, we're either going to have to cut vital services or we're going to have to keep increasing sales taxes. So what I really want people to understand is that, yes, this is a massive tax giveaway to the wealthy. Yes, this is reducing our revenue, but ultimately what they're trying to do is change the way that they tax us. They're trying to move from an income-based tax to a consumption-based tax, which means when they move everything over into more of a sales tax, ultimately they'll have to come in and raise sales tax. If they keep trying to go all the way to zero, it's not unrealistic to think that we would have to start taxing food or taxing medicine. When you look at the other states that have no income tax, they are very large tourist states. And, I am a huge, huge proponent of our signature industries, bourbon and horses. And they do bring in some tax dollars for us, and they are a draw, but they are not Mickey Mouse and the Beach. They are not Dolly Parton and Gatlinburg and Nashville. They are not Las Vegas casinos. So our tourism industry cannot compete with states like that. And so when they say that they want us to be like states like that, it's just not comparing apples to apples. So I think that what people need to understand is, yes, they're telling you that they want you to keep more of your money, but the richest Kentuckians are going to see about $11,000, while the poorest Kentuckians may see $20, maybe. So it's not what they want to portray it as. And again, as they keep adding services, as we just saw. So now this summer, when your kids go to camp, they're going to be taxed. We all have learned that when we take our dogs and our cats to the vets, that they're taxed. Our gyms are taxed. Car repairs are taxed. So they're just changing the way that they tax us ultimately. So there's a lot of glory in saying, hey, we're going to take this down. But on the back end, once our rainy day fund is depleted, once all of these temporary surpluses from the $45 billion that we got from the federal government during the pandemic are gone, it's either cut vital services or it's raise those sales taxes dramatically. So that's kind of where things stand.
Yeah, and the state government, the state budget is what, like $14 billion
Around
thereabouts, right? So
30
like 1.2 billion is a
lot.
huge chunk.
Yes.
As you pointed out, we've got this kind of influx right now because of COVID spending at the federal level, and some interesting situations that hopefully will never happen again, right? And so the idea that that we're going to just and I think we saw in the comments, Doug, and Doug mentioned this last week, the whole Kansas experiment, right, which they had to absolutely roll back. And then, like I've said it before, this is the Grover Norquist, we want to shrink government down to the size we can drown it in a bathtub, right? These guys don't want government services. They don't want to provide for the folks who need help. They want to get out of that, and this is one way to make it happen. Like, oh look, it's not going to hurt much right now because we've got these amazing revenues right now. But we're going to set it in motion, and it's predictable where it's going to go if we let them. But what are the prospects for fighting this, Cherlynn?
I hate to be a naysayer, and I hate that Frankfurt has made me a little cynical, but given their super majorities in both chambers, as you saw, it sailed through the House, and we expect that it will sail through the Senate. I don't expect it to meet any challenges over there, so it's absolutely going to happen. So it's just going to take the people being vigilant and paying attention moving forward when those services start to go away, or when they turn around and start adding additional service taxes or talk about raising the sales tax, to make some noise. But at this point, unfortunately, this is happening.
Yep. Very, very unfortunate. Willie, any thoughts about what the GOP's up to that you want to share with Cherlynn and get her thoughts?
Like the financial side is hard enough. I think right now I'm concerned about some of the newest bills being filed in terms of education, especially targeting LGBTQ students.
Yes.
What are our chances this year of cutting that down a bit? I know that the anti-CRT bill that we had initially, there were a few competing, but I think ultimately that product in Kentucky was much milder than it could have been compared to other states. What are our chances of watering down whatever horror shows are coming?
My hopes are pretty good for this. We have had a pretty successful lobby on this front in the past, and we have been able to hold off a lot of really bad things in the past. So I am hopeful that we are successful and that we're gonna fight these things. The GOP leadership keep telling us, and they're also telling the public that they very much want this session to get back to the true meaning of what a short session is, and just doing a lot of cleanup language, amending bills here and there as problems have arisen and there just needs to be a change here and there, and that they're not going to tackle a lot of major legislation, and it's going to be a quiet session. So, we've heard it before and it hasn't proven to be true, but my fingers are crossed that it absolutely is going to hold true this time, and that, that they're not going to tackle a lot of big issues like that. It's going to be really interesting to see, as we all know, unfortunately, Senator Berg had a personal tragedy in her life, and I think that she is going to come out swinging, if that kind of legislation starts to move. So I am hopeful that we can hold that off at this point. But again, we have been successful in holding those things off. So I hope that everyone, if you get the chance, the opportunity to talk to your representative or your senator, that you encourage that we have a nice, quiet session, that we just fix a few things that need to be fixed, and that we get back to the true intent of a short session, and that we can do a lot of bipartisan work on just things that need to happen, and then a lot of those controversial bills will kind of be held off. Unfortunately, it is a gubernatorial election year, so there's always the possibility that they are going to want the governor to veto a lot of things, so that then that can be talked about during election season. But we'll just have to see. At this point, I don't have a crystal ball, and my magic 8 ball is asking me to ask again.
Well, whatever you need, I'll do whatever groundwork needs to be done to support these kids.
Well,
I
thanks.
thank you for the work you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, and we appreciate you. And I think the biggest thing is just, for us to watch and see. Part of me is a little hesitant for us to make a lot of noise about those bills right now. That if we start to make a lot of noise, that, it's kind of like poking the bear. So I think, maybe the best thing to do is just kind of watch to see if they get any movement. And then if it does, for us to pounce.
The noisemakers define the identity creating moment, right?
For sure.
Yeah, it does seem, it seems likely that your point, Representative Stevenson, is like they'll want Andy to look bad as much as possible. Like, so that kind of goes against, kind of one instinct, but we'll see what happens. And I think your point, like, let's just watch and be, mindful, ever vigilant. And when the time is right to like step up and make as much noise as it possibly can, for sure.
Yeah. When you look at when the majority changed, especially in the House, when they gained the majority in the House and they came in and, they had a wish list, they had a punch list of things to do, priorities for them. And they've kind of really done them all. Let's be honest, there's been a lot of changes. They've implemented a lot of those priorities. And there's not a ton left. Charter voucher bills keep getting thrown out by the Supreme Court. So we'll kind of see what happens there. The rest of it, there is a lot of talk on social media and places about wokeness and all that kind of stuff. So, maybe that's a road that they want to go down, but maybe not. We'll just have to see. We will be vigilant, and unfortunately, as a super minority, our job really is to be the truth tellers here, to just watch what they're doing, to be reactive, to throw bombs, to be the town crier, to be sure that people in Kentucky know what's happening, for us to point out all of the flaws in their logic, and to say, hey guys, this is what's happening. And we are prepared to do that. Our caucus is small but mighty. I believe that we will punch above our weight every single day. If anybody was watching the day that we did pass House Bill 1, a lot of our new people stood up and talked, and I was so proud of them. I was really proud of our caucus that day. I thought that we did a remarkable job of doing the job that we have as a super minority. So, you can count on us for that. And we will be reaching out to friends like you guys to help us make that point and to help us to spread the word. I think at this point, the best thing that we can do is to educate the public as to what's happening and not let it happen in a vacuum.
For sure. So where are we in the kind of the session right now, right? So it's you say it's a short session. They've done some days.
Yes. So it is a short session. It's a 30-day session. And within the Constitution, we actually have the short session goes in for a week, and then we have what they call an organizational period, and that is dictated by the Constitution. We are set to come back in on February the 7th. And so really, because that's constitutionally based, so think about way back when our Constitution was originally written and people came in from all areas of the state and they were riding in on their horse and their buggy, and, so they had to get there. It took them days to get there, and then they got there. Finally started to do business. And so this portion of time was originally when leaders for the caucuses were chosen and people got together and decided what the priorities were going to be. And so in modern times, obviously we're there working all the time, and we have technology like this where people can talk and make plans together. So so this organizational period is a little weird in this day and time, but we do still have it. And our caucus is making good use of it. We're meeting weekly, and the leaders are in the office almost every single day. But for the most part, general public can start really paying attention again on February the 7th.
And I do some work in other states, and I've learned in Florida, it's kind of what they do is they actually go back to their districts and hold, partisan or bipartisan kind of town halls. So they'll actually say, hey, I'm in this, I'm back in my district, doors open, come in if you want to like talk to us about an issue, do that. I don't know if that's like, culturally, something that happens in Kentucky very much, but it does seem like
Well, and I think some people do. Representative Josie Raymond actually just held a town hall in her district, specifically about HB1, to educate people, allow them to come in and ask questions about that, which was great. And, every representative's a little bit different and they do things a little bit differently, but that's a great idea, and I do want to tell everybody, even if I'm not holding a town hall, I tell people constantly that my door is always open. Aaron, you probably know every single piece of campaign literature that goes out has my personal cell phone number on it. My business card has my personal cell phone number on it. And I encourage people to reach out to me anytime. And it is not uncommon for me to be texting or Facebook messaging with a constituent, really late at night, anytime. So I encourage that. I love one-on-one meetings. I'll go grab coffee with anybody that wants to go. Open book here. And again, I think just that individual communication and education that happens in our individual districts is irreplaceable.
Yep. So you've heard it here first, folks. Reach out to your representative. They might not all give you their cell phone number, but you can absolutely let them know your constituent. You're concerned about the fact that their number one priority is to blow a massive hole in our state budget. Communicate with them directly. And Cherlynn, any other tips for engaging with your state lawmakers?
I do encourage everybody to try to reach out. If you have not met your representative or your senator in person, please try to make an effort to do that and try to get to know them. We're regular people. You'll see us at Kroger. You'll see us, at the local bar hanging out, or somewhere grabbing dinner. We're not on a level like Congress people. Again, we are regular people. We're in your neighborhoods. So get to know all of us. Having a personal relationship with your representative is the only way that your personal voice is going to be carried to Frankfort. But I think it also makes it a little bit harder for folks to vote against you and your family's interests if they know you and you get to become friends. Just because you have different political ideologies doesn't mean that you can't become friends. And what you say and your life and your family should matter to those people. When they're making those votes on the floor, they should be thinking about you and your family and how what they're voting on is going to affect you. So reach out, make it a point to go.
Awesome. Willie, any final comments or questions?
Just hang in there. And yeah, I can say to anybody out there, I've not been as political as Aaron my entire life. And this year has been an awakening. And I have found that not just my own personal Congress people, but anyone I have reached out to and said, hey, can I talk to you across the aisle or on the same side? Everyone has been willing to listen to me. And that's not because they even know I'm a teacher of the year or anything like that. I think as a general rule, people want to hear what the populace thinks. So you are the populace.
Absolutely. Elections are not mandates, or they shouldn't be. I take the job very seriously of being a representative. I have 45,000 voices that I need to carry to Frankfort. And, so I want to hear from you, and any representative or senator that's worth their salt will do the same.
Yeah, that's great. And great place to leave it. Cherlynn, thanks so much for your time. Thank you for your leadership. Thanks for doing the work of the people in Frankfort. It can't always be fun, but we're gonna do the long game here and work to make your minority less and less of a minority by telling the words about what policies matter and how people can be involved, and that elections have consequences.
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you. Thanks for doing what you guys do each and every week and trying to help people, follow what's going on. People are busy, and I get that. So it's important that, that you guys are out there helping us spread the word. So thanks.
Awesome. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. So we've got an action alert we're going to do, and then we're going to close it out. And the call to action, I think, is really important, right? Because we heard about it just right now from Representative Stevenson. We heard about it earlier in the State of the Commonwealth address, an issue that was touched upon. Is this going to be the session Kentucky finally addresses medical marijuana? Clearly, Andy Beshear thinks it's time. He has made creative use of his pardon powers to preemptively pardon anyone legitimately using prescribed marijuana obtained from a licensed dispensary in a neighboring state. But obviously, this is an inadequate workaround. We need to get serious about it. We really need your help to deluge the legislature with constituent requests for them to legalize medical marijuana. It only takes a minute to send a message with our online form. The email will go to your House member, to your senator, as well as the 5 GOP Senate leaders, demanding this year is the year that we catch up with the majority of the nation. Most of our neighbor states make this medicine available to those who need it. The link should be in the comments in the chat right now, and it's super easy to do. Take the action, then share it with your social networks. Spread that word kind of however you're able. Let's get hundreds of folks to send their messages as well. This is a common sense thing. This does not have to be a partisan thing. It's overwhelmingly popular among voters. So like really, if these guys are serious about their elections, they should be responsive to this one. So that's what we've got for you. And then I wanted to just see if it really does go to them. Like they actually do read their email. As Cherlynn just said, they're real people. They don't have a ton of staff to hide behind. So it goes to their email. It goes to their I have seen Cherlynn respond to a constituent email in front of me. She responds to the form emails that we send through this system. She's like, Aaron, I'm for this. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just an automatic thing. So sorry. But yeah, so take action, send that email. And if you support medical marijuana, if you're like 80% of Kentucky and you support it. All right. Willie, can I ask you a favor?
Sure.
Awesome. Can you close out the show?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So we'll be back next week, and we'll be joined by the editor of the Kentucky Lantern. If you've missed this news, we've got a new news organization on the scene in Frankfort, bringing much needed reporting attention to the ongoing Capitol shenanigans. Very welcome. Editor Jamie Luck will be here with us on Kernels of Truth to share her view of some of the top stories out of the session and how the political season is shaping up. Don't miss it. In the interim, go check out the Kentucky Lantern, important news coverage, and no paywall. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, and are proud members of Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda throughout civic engagement. Production this evening was by Nate Orshan. Thank you, Nate, for the theme songs. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook, don't worry. You can rewatch shows and see our source links on Facebook. Or audio podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Logo and some graphic content provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Willie.
Thank you all.